As someone with ADHD, I struggle with money. Hello, herro friends, it's Meg, and today I want to talk to you guys about my relationship with money, how ADHD affects it, and most importantly, what I've decided to do about the situation. So, for the longest time, I've struggled with keeping track of my money. And I used to really blame myself for not trying hard enough or not being good enough, but now I realize that, as with many aspects of my life, I was struggling so much in part due to my ADHD, and getting my diagnosis really opened my eyes to that. I would procrastinate, tracking my spendings until I completely forgot what I had spent my money on. And I would misplace receipts, I couldn't find them. And, because of the hyper part of my ADHD, I would sometimes impulse buy things that I absolutely did not need, but I got hyper fixated on and just could not stop thinking about it until I purchased it. But once I had it in my hands, I realized, I didn't need it. These kinds of things are the stuff that I struggled with. I've been able to come up with some steps to better keep track of my finances. Because I've figured out what is so elusive about money for me, and I thought I would share them with you guys in hopes of, helping somebody else maybe that's struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with. And also to keep myself accountable, because I think by making this video, I force myself to have to stick to these good habits that I've, created. Because, if you have ADHD, you know how habits are so difficult. So difficult to stick to. I do want to preface this by saying I am not a financial expert, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, and so, if you find anything faulty, don't follow it, and really just take the parts that work for you. So before we even get into step 1, we actually have to do what's called step 0, which is to figure out your why. Why do you want to be better about money? This might be a silly question, but take it seriously because it'll be relevant in the steps to come. For me personally, I want to stop wanting to impulse buy things and, be afraid of not having enough money in my bank account and stuff like that, because I really want to own my own business someday. And as a business owner, I can't be irresponsible about money. I have to really be on top of everything and track my spendings and track how much I'm making and really be able to save money, be good with money, and, really just be responsible with money in order for me to be a successful business owner. And that's my why, because I want to have a successful business in the future. And everybody's why, I think, will be different. Maybe some people, they want to get out of debt, or they want to be able to save for their kids' college fund, or, I don't know what your why is, but really think about it and really be honest with yourself. Nothing is too small or too silly, If that's your why, that's your why. Just take this seriously, think about it, and write it down somewhere so you don't forget it, because as ADHD brains, we tend to forget things that are really important. So write it down. Now that we've figured out our why, we can move on to step 1, which is to figure out where your money is going. Now I know, this is much easier said than done for someone with ADHD because we tend to forget things easily and misplace things very easily. But tracking where your money is going is really the basic of figuring out how to be responsible with your money. Because if you don't know where your money is going, you don't know where to stop spending, or to, you can't even know your financial situation if you cannot track where your money is going. So this is really step 1. The way that I've implemented this in my own life is to have a to-do task to track my spending every single day. I used to try to do it weekly, monthly, but it just became too overwhelming at that point. And so I realized that if I can break it into chunks of okay, every single day at night, I am going to track how much I spent that day, then it becomes much easier to track your spendings because you're only thinking about the last 24 hours. Probably less because, you're sleeping for some of that hour. And so, just make it into digestible chunks. I also make sure to get my receipts and put them in my wallet every single time that I purchase something. And sometimes they don't give you receipts. In that case, I jot it down on my, Apple Notes quickly, what that expense was and how much I spent, because ADHD brains tends to misplace things and forget things. So consolidate your receipts into one place and make sure you always get your receipts so that you don't have to remember off the top of your head how much you spent on what. If you have physical, tangible receipts, there is no way you can forget how much you spent on what, because there's evidence right in front of your face. So make sure to get receipts, put them in one place where you will remember to, look. And if they don't give you receipts, take note of it. For me, I personally use Notion to track my expenses because I find Notion really fun, and so it makes kind of tracking my expenses fun for me because I like to open up my Notion and put in my data, and it just makes me happy. So I use Notion, but if you're like a paper and pen kind of person and writing into a journal really makes you feel happy, then by all means use pen and paper. Or maybe if you're really good at spreadsheets, go ahead and use spreadsheets because it's a great tool for tracking your expenses. It calculates everything for you if you know what you're doing. Choose a tool that will work best for you and try to avoid choosing something that you find a lot of friction in. For example, if you're an aspiring Notion user and you want to be able to use Notion but you don't know how to do it yet, don't choose Notion because you're creating more friction for yourself when tracking your expenses, and you want to reduce the amount of friction as much as possible. So choose something like pen and paper. That's easy, you don't have to think about it. Choose the right tool for you. I think you'll be surprised at how much more conscious you become whenever you're spending money when you track your expenses, because you know how much you're spending on a regular basis and you're like able to kind of put prices into context more, because you're like, oh, I spent this much on groceries and I'm about to spend this much on a mouse. Is it worth it? That kind of thing, where it just puts numbers into perspective and you're able to kind of take a step back. On to step 2, which is to create a budget. Dun dun dun! I know, the big word, budgeting. It's scary, it sounds scary, but let me assure you, it's actually quite basic. It's actually not that hard, and if you get the hang of it, it might actually even be fun. I know, surprising. Hear me out. The main idea here is to give every dollar that you have a home. And you really have to start with everything that's essential. Now, if you're like me, you can have a warped sense of what is essential. I can talk my way into making a mechanical keyboard an essential if I tried hard enough. That's the kind of person that I am. And so, essentials. What are essentials? Essentials are the things that you absolutely cannot survive without. So, the money that you pay for rent to put a roof over your head, the money that you pay for groceries because humans need to eat, your water bill because humans need water, you need to shower, all of these things. These are essentials, not a mechanical keyboard. Now that you have your essentials, you can add on some of the fun stuff. This is my personal opinion, but I really don't think you should make yourself stick to a budget where you have no room for fun, because I just feel like you're gonna hit a limit someday of like self-discipline, and then you're gonna go on a spending spree. At least that's what would happen to me if I budgeted something for myself where I didn't have any room for fun. So make sure that you make room for the things that you enjoy in life, because that's also kind of essential too, for your mental sanity, of course. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply into the practicalities of how you can budget, because there's 1,000,001 tutorials on the internet about how you can do that, and frankly, they can probably explain it better than I can, because I am a recovering shopaholic and I am still new to the budget game. Look up some tutorials, figure out how to budget. But if you would like to see a video of me doing my budgeting and kind of walk you through my process, even though it's kind of amateur and it won't be a tutorial, it'll kind of be more of like sharing what I do. Let me know down in the comments below if you want to see that, because I'd be happy to make a video like that too. Step 3 is follow your budget. This is by far probably the hardest part of this whole process. But this is exactly why I told you you need to think seriously about your why at the very beginning. Remember from step 0? If you skipped it, go back, because this is really important and you really can't do this step without it. So go back, rewind, watch 0 again. If you did the task, good job. look at your piece of paper where you wrote down what your why was, look at it, study it, engrave it into your heart. I think understanding the reason behind why you're doing this is really the key to making sure you stick to the plan, because you're doing this for a reason. You're not just doing this just because. You're doing this for your future self. So remember that when you're about to check out with a bunch of things in your cart that you don't need. You may want it, but does it actually help you achieve your goals? Do you actually need it? Is it within your budget? If it is, then by all means, check out with it. But if it's not, think twice about it. Follow your budget, because remember, you're doing this for a reason. And that's as far as I've figured out. Step 0 to step 3. I'm sure I will continue to discover more steps as I go, and I'll be happy to share them with you in the future once I discover them, but this is as far as I've gotten now. And I hope that, this was helpful to you and you can learn a little bit about how to keep track of your money. Because, let's be honest, it doesn't really come naturally to us, and that's okay. It might be difficult, you might not be able to execute these things perfectly, but it's okay. What matters is that you're trying. And I think I want to tell that to myself as well, because, I have my days as well, and I'm not perfect. Future Meg, if you're watching, it just matters that you're trying. And that's it for today. Leave a like if you like this video. If you're interested in content like this or are interested in seeing my face again, consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!